What's good, y'all? Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back to the F1 Beyond's lovely Monday. Now, listen, Haas has dropped some like 200 for like car livery for like, the upcoming race this upcoming weekend. Ew. I don't cap. It's kind of crazy. Excuse my burp. Excuse my burp. It's kind of crazy. Actually, looks pretty good. I like it. If you guys haven't seen it, I'll put it. I'll make like a post about it. But shout out to Haas, man. And hopefully they, it's actually good for them. But we are finna check out the entire history of Mercedes and F1. Now, I do want to like go through like some of these teams, like the history. If you guys have like a recommendation of a team, let me know in the comments down below. I've been reading guys' comments and all. Always appreciate you guys' support and love, man. It's great. It's always great. It's always appreciated, man. Slowly working our way up to 6K and 7K and 8. So every sub helps, every like helps, and I appreciate you guys as always. Now, shout out to Chef F1. Hopefully I said his name right. All credit goes to him big time. But without further ado, I guess we just hop into it. I don't want to keep you guys waiting for too long. Make sure you guys have some popcorn, something to drink, sit back, relax. Let's check out the entire history of Mercedes and F1. Let's get it.
Mercedes-Benz are ingrained in the history of Formula One. From engines to title-winning constructors, Mercedes have an illustrious history in the sport dating back over 70 years. Welcome back to Chef One, and this is the history of Mercedes in Formula One.
Wait, I think I said it right the first
Before we get
Chef
onto their
One.
history in F1, we'll take a brief look at their history as a company. Carl Benz was born in 1844 in Mühlberg, Baden. His father, Johann, was a locomotive operator who barely made enough to put food on the table. However, Johann unfortunately passed away when Carl was just 2 years old, making life for him and his mother extremely difficult, living in near poverty. Despite this, his mother strived to ensure that he had a good education, and Carl shone at school, notably in mechanics. Carl originally focused his studying on locksmithing, but eventually followed in his father's footsteps through locomotive engineering. While studying, Benz developed an interest in horseless carts and began tinkering with his own bike, trying to think of ways to have a motorized cart. After graduating, he went between several jobs before starting his own workshop, but continued to work on his cart idea on the side. Years later, he then founded a new company producing industrial machines, and it soon began to work on gas engines. The company was a success, and this allowed Benz to work on his side quest. In 1885, Benz finally finished his creation and called it the Benz Patent Motorwagen. The first edition, however, was very difficult to control, and so led to a collision on his first public demonstration. After alterations, Benz began to sell his creation in the summer of 1888, making it the first commercial.
Hey, to be honest, like back in the day, that was probably like people with McLarens and Ferraris and like Lamborghinis back then. Like if you had this back then, boy, talking about virgin money. Talking about, yeah, I got that. Like that was it. Obviously, if you look at it now, it looks ugly as hell. But back then, that was it. It's still pretty cool though. I'll probably have like a replica, probably like a little like desk fingering, like something like that. Like nothing too big, but hey, that's
Commercially available automobile in history. Benz and C continued to grow, however faced pressure from rivals Daimler Motor and Gesellschaft, who created the Mercedes 35 horsepower in 1901, which was made at the request of wealthy businessman Emil Janek, who decided to name it after his daughter Mercedes. The automobile was actually initially created for racing and won multiple street races with a top speed of 56 miles.
Mercedes-Benz. I see.
Due to the success of this, Daimler rebranded all their cars to the Mercedes name. Carl Benz, on the other hand, did not like the idea of fast cars, but his company was on the decline, and so he finally allowed the company to race. It saved the company, with the 1911 Blitz-Benz breaking records with its 140 miles per hour top speed. Daimler and Benz were doing well until the First World War. The struggles of the war, though, forced the two to put their rivalry to one side and join forces, creating Daimler-Benz, whose vehicles would be known as Mercedes-Benz. So now we know how the company started, so what about their involvement in Formula One? Mercedes had stopped their efforts in street racing at the end of the 1930s, but returned to racing in 1954 with the now established Formula One World Championship. Mercedes ended halfway through the championship with the technologically advanced W196. The car was so impressive that 1951 world champion Juan Manuel Fangio transferred mid-season from Maserati to join the Silver Arrows. In their first race, an incredible 1-2 victory for the team, with Fangio taking the victory. Fangio won 3 more races that year to take home the championship. A staggering start, and the success continued into the 1955 season. However, in 1955, there was a tragic accident at Le Mans. Mercedes sports car driver Pierre Levin was involved in a major crash which saw large pieces of debris fly into the crowd. 83 spectators died, as well as Pierre. This incident led to Mercedes' withdrawal from motorsport. Mercedes wouldn't return to Formula 1 for 40 years. It was only in 1994 they returned, but not as a constructor. This time they returned as an engine supplier in partnership with Ilmor. They signed a deal to produce engines for
40 years is crazy, but like, you can't really be mad about that because, like, you know how traumatizing that is? Like, you worked your whole life, you know, got that W196, you know, you produced this fantastic, great F1 car, and then for an accident like that, which killed over 80 people, like, that's pretty traumatizing. Like, that kind of does mess you up. Like, so you can see why they went away, because, like, you know, it's messed up, but damn, like, dang.
For Sauber for the 1993 season, however, Mercedes backed out, meaning the engines only carried the slogan "Concept by Mercedes-Benz" and were officially Sauber badged engines. However, the side were quicker than expected, and so Sauber were able to convince Mercedes to officially enter in 1994. After a year of supplying Sauber, Mercedes became the engine supplier to McLaren and took their first victory back in the sport in the 1997 Australian Grand Prix. Mika Hakkinen won back-to-back Drivers' Championships in 98 and 99, whilst the team won the 98 Constructors' Championship. McLaren then went nearly 10 years without another championship before winning again in 2008 thanks to Lewis Hamilton.
Is that Glock? Is that Glock going slowly? It is! That's Glock! Oh my goodness me!
But then Mercedes had an opportunity. Honda pulled out of F1 at the end of 2008 due to the financial crisis, and Ross Brawn led a management buyout of the side in order to keep them on the grid. This created Brawn GP, and despite a miraculous 2009 campaign which saw the Brackley side win both the Drivers' and Constructors' Championship, the side still needed investment to continue, and thus came the opportunity for Mercedes. On the 16th of November 2009, it was announced Mercedes-Benz, in partnership with Abar Investments, had purchased a 75.1.
So hold on. So what if Brawn never won that year, like in 09? What if they never won that year? It's a very, very interesting question.
1% stake in the team, and so the Mercedes F1 team was created. But before we get onto the history of the team from 2010 onwards, let's take a brief look at the history of the Brackley-based team before the name changed to Mercedes. The team's origins actually trace back all the way to 1958, when Tyrrell Racing Organisation entered cars in various single-seater championships. In 1968, they finally entered Formula 1, and to great success, winning a Constructors' Championship and 3 Drivers' Championships in the 70s, thanks to Jackie Stewart. However, into the 90s, and the team's results began to slide, and so in 1998, Tyrrell sold the team to British American Tobacco. The company renamed the team to British American Racing, or BAR, and set up a new factory in Brackley. BAR competed for 6 years in the sport and were generally a lower midfield side, apart from in 2004, when the team picked up 11 podiums and 119 points to finish second in the championship, only behind Ferrari. However, restrictions were increasing on tobacco advertising in the sport, and so the team's engine supplier Honda acquired full control of the team at the end of the 2005 season, and of course renamed the side to Honda Racing. In their first year, Honda came fourth and picked up a victory at the Hungarian Grand Prix thanks to Jenson Button. For the next couple of years, the side floated around the midfield until, as mentioned earlier, in 2008, Honda backed out of the sport, thus creating Brawn GP and thus leading us onto the story of Mercedes-Benz in Formula 1 from 2010 onwards. After winning the 2009 title with the team, it was actually expected for Button to sign a contract extension with the team and partner the incoming Nico Rosberg from Williams. However, the Brawn car did begin to fade somewhat towards the end of the season when others caught up. One of those who caught up were McLaren, who offered Button a seat alongside Hamilton for the 2010 season. Button accepted, and so Mercedes had to look elsewhere for their first season, and elsewhere was a certain Michael Schumacher. Michael had retired in 2006, however prepared to return to the sport in 2009 after Felipe Massa's injury. Ultimately, he was unable to replace Massa due to an injury, but stated the prep he did gave him the passion to return to F1. Along with this, Michael stated the opportunity to fulfill a long-held ambition to drive for Mercedes and to be working again with team principal Ross Brawn led him to accepting a 3-year offer. For the first year, the side were obviously not as competitive as the year before, but still relatively impressive. They were behind the big three of Red Bull, Ferrari and McLaren, but finished the season as best of the rest in fourth. Nico was able to get more out of the car, picking up 3 podiums and an impressive 7th place in the standings, beating the 7-time champion in Equal Machinery, who came 9th. At the 2011 season opener, the side suffered a double DNF. The perfect start to the season, of course. Generally on the whole though, the season was a step back for the team, as whilst they finished 4th once again, picked up no podiums, and were further back points wise from the top 3. Once again, Nico came 7th, 1 place ahead of Michael in 8th. On to 2012, when AMG was added to the team name, the high performance brand of the company. After a tough couple of opening rounds, the team bounced back in China, as Nico picked up the team's first pole position since Fangio in 1955, and in the race Nico converted it, picking up the team's first win in 57 years. The team though were actually on the whole worse and a lot more track specific. They were generally in the midfield fight, but were able to pick up another 2 podiums. Nico took home P2 in the Monaco Grand Prix, whilst Michael claimed his final podium in the sport at the European Grand Prix in Valencia. The side eventually came home 5th in the championship with Nico P9.
So we're not gonna. Ew. I guess that's the front wing. Alright.
Michael ending his contract with the side and his time in F1 in 13th. With Michael leaving at the end of 2012, a seat was free, and to the surprise of many, it was 2008 world champion Lewis Hamilton who would fill it. McLaren were at least the third quickest car in 2012, and so it seemed to be a backward step for the Englishman. However, with new regulations round the corner, the proposition of a works team tempted him. So for 2013, it would be Lewis Hamilton alongside his childhood friend Nico Rosberg, but there was also change up top, as in January, Toto Wolff became an executive director of the team, acquiring a 30% stake. As well as this, in September of the year prior, Niki Lauda was appointed as non-executive chairman of the team, and the former three-time world champion took part in the negotiations to bring in Hamilton. 2013 marked a significant step up for the team. The team picked up 9 podiums and 3 race wins, with Nico winning in Monaco and Silverstone before Hamilton won in Hungary. The step up in results led to the side finishing second in the constructors, and Hamilton and Rosberg P4 and P6 in the drivers respectively. So then 2014, the year Hamilton was banking on, the first year of the new hybrid era, which saw turbo hybrid engines become mandatory, and Mercedes were far and away ahead of the rest. It was domination in 2014 as the side picked up 18 out of 19 poles, 16 out of 19 wins, a 1-2 in the drivers, and of course the Constructors' Championship. Nico won the opening round in Australia as Hamilton retired before 6 1-2s in a row, with Hamilton ahead of Rosberg in 5 of them. It was domination, and look,
6 1-2s in a row. That's freaking insane. I mean, we kind of see it now with McLaren, but also Verstappen has something to say about that. But, bro, just that change of era, with the whole turbo engines or whatever, bro.
Lewis Hamilton picked his teammate to the championship with 384 points to Nico's 317. 2015, and it was much of the same. The team picked up their second constructors at the 2015 Russian Grand Prix before Hamilton picked up back-to-back titles at the US Grand Prix. Lewis finished the season 59 points ahead of Nico, who also had another great year, collecting 6 race wins, including each of the final 3 rounds. Nico carried on his fine end of season form into 2016, winning the opening 4 rounds of the season whilst Hamilton struggled. Then, after an infamous double DNF in Spain, Hamilton bounced back to win 6 of the next 7 rounds and had the lead at the championship. Nico was the one to bounce back this time, and 4 wins in the next 5 rounds saw him sit 33 points clear with just 4 rounds to go. Hamilton did everything he could to close the gap, winning each of the last 4 races, including an infamous attempt to back into his teammate at the season finale. But it wasn't enough, and Mr. Equal Machinery won his first Drivers' Championship by 5 points. Nico had achieved his dream of becoming world champion, and that was all he needed from the sport until he announced his retirement. So for 2017, the team needed a new driver to partner Lewis, and on the 16th of January, it was announced that the Finn, Valtteri Bottas, would drive for the team. Valtteri had just come off the back of an 8th place finish in the standings for Williams, an impressive feat. 2017, though, saw the side face its first battle for another team in the turbo hybrid era, as Ferrari started the season strong. Sebastian Vettel won the opening round of the season in Australia and led the championship after 12 rounds. Hamilton, though, as he always does, fought back, and a flurry of wins meant that a P9 in Mexico was enough to wrap up the title with 2 rounds to go. As for Bottas, he had a decent first year for the side, coming home 3rd along with 2 race wins, the Russian Grand Prix and the season finale Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. So on to 2018, and Ferrari once again started strong as Sebastian won the opening 2 rounds of the season. Despite Hamilton picking up 3 race wins, victory at the British Grand Prix meant Vettel was the championship leader after 10 rounds. But Hamilton, well, he was Hamilton and won 7 of the next 8 rounds to crush any competition and win his 5th driver's title. It was a more difficult year for Bottas though, who eventually finished the season 5th behind Verstappen and both Ferraris. Still, it was enough for the team to claim their 5th constructors title. 2019, and we were back to domination by Mercedes. The team won each of the first 8 rounds of the championship, Hamilton winning 6 and Bottas 2. Ferrari were still their closest competitors, however were a fair way back. Hamilton strolled to his 6th title, whilst Bottas came a relatively comfortable 2nd. And then 2020, well, you know the story, another comfortable year as Hamilton...
I will say though, like, for real, about Valtteri, he's a hell of a teammate to just kind of know entering every year, like, I'm racing alongside one of the greatest F1 drivers of all time, knowing that he's probably going to win it this year. And my job is to just not really get in the way of that, but still do my job. Like, you tell me Valtteri couldn't win, like, he couldn't get one? Obviously, like I said, driving with Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton was winning damn near almost every race. And, you know, Valtteri had just be a good teammate. It kind of reminds me of, like, the Ruben Barrichello and Schumacher with, like, Ferrari. Like, Ruben kind of knew that, you know, Michael was going to win it. You know, he had to just be a good teammate. Like, damn, who's a better teammate? Ruben Barrichello or Valtteri Bottas? Ruben Valtteri, Barrichello, Bottas.
Hamilton won 11 of the 17 rounds, whilst Bottas picked up 2 victories to claim another second place finish. And then to 2021. Red Bull closed up to be almost neck and neck with Mercedes in terms of performance for the year, and through Max Verstappen we saw arguably the best title fight in F1 history. Hamilton and Verstappen traded wins throughout the season and entered the final race of the season level on points. Hamilton drove a brilliant race and looked destined to win the title until... And we'll leave it there. Anyway, on a more positive note for the side, Valtteri did enough to ensure the side picked up another Constructors' title. It was to be his last with the side though, as it was announced he would leave and sign for Alfa Romeo in 2022. The free seat was of course filled by Mercedes Junior product and Williams driver George Russell. So 2022 came along, and with it brought the biggest overhaul to the regulation since 2014. Mercedes went about things though with an entirely different concept to every other team, with a zero side pod idea, which turned out to not be the right idea. The side for the first time in 10 years were not the quickest on the grid, as Red Bull and even Ferrari overtook them. They suffered a difficult season, but there seemed to be light at the end of the tunnel, as the team picked up a 1-2 at the penultimate Brazilian Grand Prix, with George beating out Lewis to the win. Ultimately, they came home third in the Constructors, with George P4 and Lewis P6. For 2023, it was much of the same, however the sides around them lacked consistency, meaning the side were able to pick up P2 in the championship with Lewis P3 and George P7. And so that leads us on to now. It was of course announced in the off-season that legendary driver Lewis Hamilton would leave the team at the end of 2024 to sign for Ferrari, and as of today, that seat hasn't been filled, although rumours are increasing that Carlos Sainz will be the one to take the seat. So what next for the team? The 2020...
You kind of do feel bad for Mercedes. It's like, damn, like, really, but it's just a change of guard. You know, they dominated for all those years with Nico Rosberg, Lewis, Valtteri, and, you know, Red Bull just came up, and, you know, new rules, stuff are adding, new regulations are adding, you know, Mercedes just couldn't really catch up compared to, like, Red Bull, so now we're seeing it now with McLaren, who's been easily the best team this season. Change of guard, man. Change of guard. The history of Mercedes. It was amazing. Top tier. You guys let me know in the comments down below. You guys overall thoughts about that. See you guys soon. Be safe. Peace.